The American South. A land of sprawling plantations, mist-shrouded swamps, and grand antebellum mansions. It's a region famous for its hospitality, its history, and its stories. But the soil here is steeped in something darker. The legacy of war, slavery, and sudden, violent death has left a deep and lasting stain. Here, the past isn't just remembered, it's resident. The air is thick with memory, and the ghosts of a troubled history are not shy about making their presence known. Tonight, we journey into the heart of Southern Gothic horror. We are counting down the top 12 most haunted places in the American South, where the echoes of battlefields and the sorrow of the Old South refuse to fade into silence. But be warned. The spirits you are about to meet are rooted in deep pain. Their stories are not for the faint of heart, and after hearing them, you may find the southern night scenes a little darker, and the silence a little too full. 1. The Myrtles Plantation, St. Francisville, Louisiana. A stunning example of antebellum architecture, surrounded by ancient, twisting live oaks, but known throughout the world as one of America's most haunted homes, with a reputation built on the poison of revenge. The history is a tale of brutality and consequence. In the 19th century, a slave named Chloe was allegedly caught eavesdropping by the plantation owner. As punishment, he had her ear cut off. In revenge, she baked a poison cake using oleander leaves, intending to make the family sick and then nurse them back to health to regain favor. Instead, she killed the owner's wife and 2 daughters. For her crime, Chloe was hanged by a mob, and her spirit was doomed to walk the grounds. The paranormal encounter is relentless. The ghost of Chloe, easily identified by the turban she wears to cover her missing ear, is seen peering into windows. The apparitions of the 2 poisoned little girls are seen playing on the grand veranda. Phantom footsteps, moving chairs, and the sound of a ghostly piano are commonplace. Many visitors report being touched, their hair pulled by unseen hands. The climactic story is captured in a famous photograph. A tour group took a picture on the grand staircase. When developed, there was a clear, translucent figure of a young girl peering out from between the spindles of the staircase railing, a girl who was not part of the tour, and who matched the description of one of the poisoned children. The Myrtles Plantation is a beautiful facade hiding a core of ancient poison, where the sins of the past play out in an endless, ghostly loop. 2. The Bell Witch Cave, Adams, Tennessee. A simple, damp cave on a rural Tennessee farm, that was the epicenter of the most documented and destructive poltergeist case in American history, an entity so malicious it claimed a human life. The history is a 19th-century nightmare. From 1817 to 1821, the Bell family was tormented by an invisible entity that slapped, pinched, and cursed them. It claimed to be a witch named Kate Batts and focused its rage on the patriarch, John Bell. The entity was so well known that even future President Andrew Jackson visited, vowing to defeat it, only to have his caravan stopped by a spectral force. The paranormal encounter, as recorded, was intelligent and cruel. The witch could speak, recite sermons, and predict future events. It would pull the bed sheets off the family as they slept and poison John Bell, leaving him paralyzed and eventually leading to his death. The cave on the property is said to be its home, and visitors report being scratched, hearing disembodied whispers, and feeling an overwhelming sense of being hunted. The climactic story is John Bell's deathbed. As he lay dying, unable to speak or move, a small, dark vial was found in the cupboard. The witch's voice cackled through the house, boasting that it had poisoned him. To test it, a drop was given to the family cat, which immediately convulsed and died. John Bell was dead by the next morning. The Bell Witch Cave is a place of pure, sentient evil, a reminder that some legends are not just stories, but warnings. 3. The St. Augustine Lighthouse, Florida. A beautiful, striped beacon guiding ships away from Florida's treacherous coast, and a tower that holds the trapped, terrified spirits of 3 little girls who met a tragic end. The history is a heartbreak. In 1873, the lighthouse keeper was painting the tower when the cart carrying his 3 young daughters, Hezekiah, Mary, and Eliza, broke loose. The girls plunged to their deaths on the concrete below. Their playful spirits are said to have remained forever bound to the place of their sudden passing. The paranormal encounter here is one of sorrow and playful malice. Visitors and staff report the sound of children's laughter and running footsteps echoing in the keeper's house. The scent of fresh oranges, the girls' favorite snack, appears and vanishes. But the lighthouse tower itself is a vortex of activity. People feel small, unseen hands pushing them, tugging at their clothes, and hear tiny, whispering voices begging them to stay and play. The climactic story was captured by a paranormal investigation team. While locked in the lighthouse tower overnight, they set up a recorder at the top. In the dead of night, they clearly captured the sound of 3 distinct, young girls giggling, followed by the horrifying, screeching sound of metal on metal, the exact sound the cart would have made, and then, a series of 3, soft, sickening thuds on the ground far below. The investigators refused to finish their night. The St. Augustine Lighthouse is a beautiful sentinel standing guard over a timeless tragedy, where the ghosts of children are forever at play, and forever falling. 4. The Moon River Brewing Company, Savannah, Georgia. A bustling brewpub in a beautiful, historic building that was once the city's first hotel and, later, a hospital. Centuries of misery, death, and a particular malevolent spirit named James have made it Savannah's most actively haunted location. The history is a catalogue of suffering. Since the 1820s, the building has witnessed bar brawls, yellow fever epidemics, and countless deaths. It was a place where the sick were quarantined to die, and where the rough-and-tumble clientele often settled disputes with violence. The paranormal encounter is aggressive and well documented. Glasses fly off the bar. People are pushed down the stairs, particularly on the 2nd floor. The apparition of a menacing man in a black coat, known as James, is seen staring from the top of the stairs. In the basement, a former morgue, visitors are overcome with nausea and report being grabbed by unseen, icy hands. The climactic story involves a waitress closing up alone. She was in the basement storage when all the lights went out. She felt a cold breath on her neck and heard a deep, raspy voice whisper, "Get out." She fumbled for the door, but it was locked from the outside. As she panicked, the lights flickered back on to reveal the word "leave" scratched into the condensation on a metal keg in front of her. The door then creaked open on its own. The Moon River Brewing Company proves that in Savannah, you can pour a pint almost anywhere, but you can't wash away the bloodstains of the past. 5. The USS Alabama, Mobile, Alabama. A mighty South Dakota-class battleship, a veteran of World War II's Pacific Theater, now permanently docked as a museum, where the crew of 2,500 men never truly disembarked, and the sounds of battle still echo deep within her steel hull. The history is one of service and sacrifice. That mighty A survived fierce naval battles and kamikaze attacks, but men did die aboard from accidents and illness. The intense, confined energy of combat and the sudden, violent death of young sailors has left a permanent psychic scar on the ship. The paranormal encounter is claustrophobic and authentic. Tour guides report hearing phantom voices shouting orders over the ship's intercom. The smell of cigar smoke, the captain's preferred brand, lingers in his sealed-off cabin. Full-bodied apparitions of sailors in period uniforms are seen manning battle stations, and the sound of running footsteps on the deck above is constant, even when the ship is closed to the public. The climactic story comes from a maintenance worker. He was alone in the lower engine room when he heard the distinct clang of a wrench dropping. He turned to see a translucent sailor in soot-stained coveralls, frantically trying to turn a valve that had been sealed shut for decades. The sailor looked at him, his face a mask of panic, and yelled, "We're taking on water. Don't just stand there, help me," before fading into the humming machinery. The USS Alabama is a sentient piece of history, a warship where the crew is forever battling, forever repairing, forever sailing on the haunted seas of eternity. 6. The Mansfield State Historic Site, Louisiana. A serene, grassy battlefield where the Confederates won one of their last major victories, but the silence here is a lie. The field is still occupied by the ghosts of soldiers who fought and died in a war they could not win. The history is a bloody chapter of the Civil War. In 1864, the Battle of Mansfield was a brutal, close-quarters conflict that left thousands dead and wounded on both sides. The land, once peaceful farmland, was transformed into a hellscape of smoke, screams, and bayonet charges. The paranormal encounter is a residual replay of the battle's chaos. Visitors report hearing the phantom sounds of drumming, rebel yells, and muffled musket fire. Apparitions of soldiers in both blue and gray uniforms are seen marching through the woods or kneeling behind long-gone earthworks. A pervasive smell of gunpowder and damp wool hangs in the air on certain evenings. The climactic story is told by a park ranger. Just after dusk, he saw the full-bodied apparition of a young Confederate soldier, no older than 16, sitting against a tree, weeping uncontrollably. As the ranger watched, the boy looked up, his face smudged with powder and tears, and said, "I just want to go home to Mama," before fading away, leaving only the sound of the wind in the pines. The Mansfield battlefield is a place where the trauma of war is etched into the very atmosphere, a wound that will not heal. 7. The Sorrel-Weed House, Savannah, Georgia. A magnificent Greek Revival mansion, a crown jewel of Savannah's historic district, and a house shattered by two tragic suicides that unleashed a torrent of paranormal activity. The history is a Southern Gothic tragedy. The home's owner, Francis Sorrel, allegedly had an affair. His wife, Matilda, discovered it and, in her despair, threw herself from the second-floor balcony. Shortly after, the enslaved woman he was involved with, Molly, hanged herself in the carriage house. The double suicide cursed the home forever. The paranormal encounter is intense and gendered. In the main house, Matilda's spirit is a presence of profound sadness. Her weeping echoes through the halls, and her apparition is seen on the balcony. But in the carriage house, Molly's spirit is angry and volatile. Visitors report being scratched, having their clothes tugged, and feeling sudden, violent rage. The two spirits are locked in an eternal, Spectral Conflict. The climactic story was witnessed by a tour group. As the guide told the story of Matilda's suicide, a heavy chandelier in the front parlor began to swing violently on its own. At the same moment, from the carriage house across the courtyard, the group heard the distinct, terrifying sound of a rope straining and creaking under a heavy weight. The phenomena stopped as abruptly as they started. The Sorrel-Weed house is a beautiful, broken home, forever divided by the jealousies and sorrows of the dead. 8. The Crescent Hotel, Eureka Springs, Arkansas. The Grand Old Lady of the Ozarks, a stunning, Victorian-era hotel perched on a mountain peak that was once the site of a fraudulent cancer hospital, where the ghost of its sinister founder still stalks the halls and the cries of his victims are never far away. The history takes a dark turn in the 1930s. A doctor named Norman Baker turned the hotel into the Baker Cancer Hospital. He was a charlatan who used primitive, painful, and useless treatments on desperate patients, many of whom died in agony. He was eventually exposed and arrested for mail fraud. The paranormal encounter is a direct result of this malpractice. The ghost of a red-haired nurse is seen pushing a gurney down the hall. The spirit of a cancer patient named Theodora is known to appear in mirrors. But the most terrifying presence is Baker himself, a large man in a white suit and purple turban, whose apparition radiates malevolence and is often seen near the morgue in the basement. The climactic story comes from a guest in room for 19. She awoke to the feeling of being suffocated. She opened her eyes to see the apparition of Norman Baker leaning over her, his hands around her throat. He was whispering, "The treatment is not complete." She screamed and he vanished, but the feeling of his cold hands remained on her neck for hours. The Crescent Hotel is a monument to misplaced hope and medical malice, a beautiful building with a sickened soul. 9. The McRaven Tour Home, Vicksburg, Mississippi. A house that spans 3 distinct eras, from a 1797 frontier cabin to a grand pre-Civil War mansion. It's been called the time capsule of the South, and it holds the ghosts of every family that ever lived and died within its walls. The history is written in the blood of its residents. The original owner was killed by bandits. During the Civil War, it was struck by a cannonball during the siege of Vicksburg, and a young woman was killed inside. The cumulative sorrow of war, disease, and violent death has saturated this home. The paranormal encounter is a layered haunting. The ghost of a Confederate soldier is seen looking out the window, waiting for a battle that is long over. The spirit of a young girl who died of yellow fever plays in the hallways. But the most active is the ghost of Mary Elizabeth, the woman killed by the cannonball, who is often seen in her wedding dress, confused and searching for her fiancé. The climactic story involves the Bloody Room. A visitor on a tour fainted in this room. When she revived, she was speaking in a different voice, claiming to be a Civil War soldier named John. She described the cannonball impact in vivid, horrifying detail, the smell of gunpowder, and the sight of Mary Elizabeth dying, before collapsing again. She had no memory of the event. McRaven is not one ghost story, but a dozen, all trapped together under one roof, forever replaying their personal tragedies. 10. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Louisville, Kentucky. A massive, decaying Gothic structure on a hill that was once a state-of-the-art tuberculosis hospital, and later gained a reputation as a death factory where thousands succumbed to the White Plague in gruesome, isolated conditions. The history is a nightmare of epidemic and archaic medicine. At its peak, the SAN was overflowing with patients. With no cure, treatments were brutal and often experimental. It's estimated that over 8,000 people died within its walls. The most infamous feature is the body chute, a dark, concrete tunnel used to discreetly transport the dead away from the living patients. The paranormal encounter is a cacophony of lost souls. Shadow people dart through the vast, empty wards. The sound of slamming doors and gurney wheels is constant. Disembodied coughing and weeping echo from rooms 502 and 505, where particularly grim events occurred. In the body chute, visitors report being touched, pushed, and hearing the sound of dragging sacks. The climactic story is of room 502. A nurse was said to have hanged herself there after becoming pregnant out of wedlock. Another version says she was murdered. Her ghost, a woman in a white nurse's uniform, is violently aggressive. She has been known to shove people, scream in their faces, and throw objects. She is the sanatorium's most vengeful warden, forever trapped in the room of her death. Waverly Hills is not a building, it is a monument to despair, a place where death was so common, it became part of the routine. 11. The St. James Hotel, Selma, Alabama. A beautifully restored antebellum hotel on the Alabama River, where the ghost of a jealous former owner, Jesse James, and a heartbroken riverboat captain ensure that the past is always checked in. The history is one of outlaws and lost love. The infamous outlaw Jesse James was a frequent guest and even part owner for a time. Another permanent resident is Captain Benjamin Starr, a riverboat captain who died in the hotel while waiting for his lover to return. She never did. The paranormal encounter is a mix of the dangerous and the sad. Jesse James's spirit is mischievous and territorial, known to unlock doors, hide keys, and create general chaos. Captain Starr's ghost is a gentlemanly presence. Guests in his room report the smell of river water and pipe tobacco, and some have awoken to see his apparition standing at the window, still watching for his lost love's boat. The climactic story involves a couple staying in the Jesse James room. They were woken in the night by the sound of spurs jingling and the feeling of someone sitting on the edge of their bed. The man opened his eyes to see the translucent figure of a man with a thick beard and a dusty coat staring down at him. The figure tipped his hat, said, "You're in my spot, partner," and then vanished. The St. James Hotel is a place where the romantic and the reckless sides of the Old South are forever preserved, side by side. 12. The Bonaventure Cemetery, Savannah, Georgia. A breathtakingly beautiful, 100-acre cemetery on the bluffs of the Wilmington River, famous for its stately live oaks, draped in Spanish moss, and its ornate, sorrowful statuary, but this is a beauty that hides a deep, restless energy. This is not a place of peace, but a city of the dead, and its population is very, very active. The history is the history of Savannah itself. A chronicle of yellow fever, war, and sudden death. The graves here tell stories of immense grief, from the iconic statue of little Gracie's Watson, who died at 6, to the victims of countless duels and tragedies. The sheer concentration of sorrow has made the cemetery a hotbed of paranormal phenomena. The paranormal encounter is pervasive and poetic. Apparitions in period dress are seen strolling the pathways at dusk. The sound of phantom funeral dirges floats on the humid air. The most famous spirit is that of little Gracie. Visitors leave toys at her grave and often report hearing a child's laughter, followed by the feeling of a small, cold hand slipping into their own. A photographer, famous for his haunting images of the cemetery, was working late, capturing the moon over the river. He set up his tripod and took a long exposure shot. When he developed the film, the photo was perfect, except for one detail. In the foreground, sitting on a marble bench that had been empty, was the clear figure of a woman in a black mourning dress, her face hidden by a veil. And next to her, on the bench, was the distinct, damp impression of where another figure had been sitting. Bonaventure Cemetery is the absolute pinnacle of Southern Gothic haunting. It is a place where the line between the beautiful and the macabre doesn't just blur, it vanishes entirely. You have now walked through the mist of Savannah's cemeteries, stood on the decks of ghostly battleships, and heard the whispers from plantation verandas. You have seen that the soul of the South is a complex tapestry, woven with threads of glory, grief, and ghost stories. So we have to ask you, after hearing these 12 tales from the heart of Southern darkness, would you dare to spend a night in the Bell Witch Cave, or face the angry spirits of the Myrtles Plantation? Or would you take a solitary, moonlit walk through the endless avenues of Bonaventure? Let us know in the comments which of these Southern haunts left the deepest mark on you. If these stories made you feel the weight of Southern history, help us keep sharing these tales. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with a friend who appreciates a story with a chill. And to make sure you join us for our next journey into the unknown, subscribe to Ghostly Tales, and ring that notification bell. Because below the Mason-Dixon line, the dead are always ready to talk. Until next time, sleep well, if you can.